The signal. The Helios Deep Space Research Station hung in the void like a silver spider, its 8 sprawling arms extending from a central hub. Situated at the edge of mapped space, it represented humanity's farthest reach into the cosmos, a lonely sentinel monitoring the darkness between stars. Dr. Nadia Volkov stood before the curved observation window, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of infinite night. 16 years of her life had been devoted to this station, watching, listening, searching for signs of intelligence beyond Earth. At 53, the lines around her eyes had deepened, her once black hair now streaked with silver, but her gaze remained sharp as ever. Beautiful, isn't it? The voice belonged to Caleb Winters, the station's communications specialist. He approached with careful steps, his tall frame moving with the deliberate grace of someone who had spent most of his life in varying gravity conditions. Nadia nodded without turning. Especially tonight, the Carina Nebula is particularly vibrant. That's actually why I'm here. Something in Caleb's tone made her turn. His usually composed face showed tension, the tendons in his neck visible. I've detected something unusual emanating from that direction, a signal. Nadia's heart skipped, random cosmic noise. No, his fingers trembled slightly as he extended a data tablet. It's structured, Dr. Volkov, repeating patterns with mathematical precision. I've never seen anything like it. The data scrolling across the screen made Nadia's breath catch. 16 years of scanning the stars and nothing. Now this clear, undeniable patterns. Have you informed Commander Wang? Not yet, I wanted your verification first. Wise decision. She took the tablet, studying the oscillating waves. This could change everything, Caleb, or it could be nothing, a pulsar with unusual properties perhaps. His eyes met hers. You don't believe that any more than I do. Within an hour, Nadia had assembled the station's senior research team in the Central Observatory. Quantum physicist Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, exobiologist Dr. Josephine Martinez, and the station's AI specialist, Dr. Victor Petrovsky, crowded around the holographic display showing the signal's patterns. Commander Marcus Wung entered last, his compact frame carrying the authority of 20 years in Earth Space Command. Dr. Volkov, I understand you've found something significant. Potentially groundbreaking, Commander. Nadia manipulated the hologram, expanding certain sections. The signal repeats every 107 minutes. The first section contains what appear to be mathematical constants, prime numbers, pi, the golden ratio. Universal concepts, Dr. Tanaka murmured. The same approach we would use to establish communication. And the second part, Wung asked, eyes fixed on the shimmering data. Dr. Petrovsky stepped forward, his lanky frame bending toward the display. That's where it gets fascinating. The patterns suggest a form of language or at least information encoding. We've only decoded fragments, but it seems to contain star charts, atomic structures, and possibly conceptual imagery. Could it be a hoax? Asked Wung. Perhaps a forgotten probe or transmission from Earth. Impossible, Caleb replied firmly. The signal originates approximately 7,200 light-years away in the Carina Nebula, and it contains stellar formations that match nothing in our databases. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Humanity had searched the cosmos for centuries, sending probes and signals, building increasingly sensitive receivers, all hoping to answer the ancient question, are we alone? Now it seemed they had their answer. What do they want? Commander Wung voiced the question they were all thinking. Dr. Martinez spoke for the first time, her voice soft but steady. Based on our preliminary analysis, they're requesting information about us, about Earth, about humanity. The debate that followed was heated. Security Chief Olivia Reynolds argued for caution, suggesting they observe but not engage until Earth Command could be consulted, a process that would take weeks given their remote location. We've prepared for this moment for generations, Dr. Petrovsky countered, his Ukrainian accent thickening with emotion. This is why we're out here, to find others, to expand our understanding of life in the universe. Or to expose ourselves to threats we can't possibly comprehend, Reynolds shot back. We know nothing about them, their technology, their intentions. Commander Wung listened to both sides, his expression revealing nothing. When the arguments began to circle back on themselves, he raised a hand for silence. Dr. Volkov, as our senior xenoscience specialist, what do you recommend? Nadia had been quiet during the debate, weighing each argument. Now 16 pairs of eyes turned to her. We respond, she said finally, cautiously. We share basic scientific knowledge, cultural concepts, our location in broad terms. Nothing that could compromise Earth's security if our new friends turn out to be something else. And if they're hostile, Reynolds asked. Then they already know we're here, Nadia replied simply. The signal was directed specifically at this station. If they wished us harm, why announce their presence? After 3 days of analysis and preparation, the response was ready. They had crafted it with painstaking precision, mathematical concepts to establish understanding, followed by information about human biology, history, and achievements. They included images of Earth's landscapes, samples of music and art, and finally, a greeting from the station leadership. We are humanity, the message concluded. We seek peaceful exchange of knowledge with all sentient beings. We await your response with hope and friendship. The message was transmitted, racing across the void toward the unknown recipients. And then they waited. For weeks, life on Helios Station continued with an undercurrent of nervous anticipation. Every communications officer worked double shifts, monitoring for any response. Scientists reviewed the original signal countless times, searching for nuances they might have missed. On the 37th day, the strange occurrences began. It started with minor equipment malfunctions, sensors giving impossible readings, communications experiencing unexplained delays. Computer systems reported phantom energy signatures at the edge of their detection range. Just interference from the nebula, the engineers insisted, but their explanations grew less convincing as the anomalies increased. Then came the dreams. Station personnel reported eerily similar nightmares, vast geometric structures floating in darkness, twisted corridors that seemed to bend reality, and always watching entities that weren't quite right. Mass hysteria, suggested Dr. Benjamin Ford, the station's psychologist. A natural response to the stress of potential first contact. Nadia wasn't convinced, especially when the station's research animals began behaving strangely. The laboratory mice huddled in corners, refusing food. The handful of cats brought by crew members hissed at empty shadows and clawed at sealed doors. On the 58th day, Caleb burst into Nadia's laboratory, his face ashen. "They're coming," he said simply, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our deep space sensors just picked up something entering the Helios system. He swallowed hard. It's moving faster than should be possible." Commander Wang called an immediate station-wide alert. Defense protocols were activated, though everyone understood their weapons would likely be useless against a civilization capable of interstellar travel. "How long do we have?" Nadia asked as they hurried toward the command center. 4 hours, maybe less, Caleb answered. "Whatever it is, it's decelerating now, but the energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it." Security Chief Reynolds was already organizing response teams when they arrived. "I've armed everyone with basic weapons," she reported grimly. "Not that they'll do much good. Most of our defensive capabilities are designed to protect against meteors, not visitors." "Let's not assume hostility," Commander Wang reminded her, though Nadia could see the tension in his shoulders. "They responded to our message. They're intelligent beings seeking contact." "Then why do they feel wrong?" asked Dr. Martinez softly from her station. "I've studied their communications for weeks now, Commander. There's something off about the way they structure concepts, as if they're trying to mimic human thought patterns but don't quite understand them." Wang had no answer for that. Instead, he ordered all non-essential personnel to secure quarters and established a first contact team consisting of himself, Dr. Volkov, Caleb Winters, Dr. Martinez, and reluctantly, Security Chief Reynolds with 2 officers. As the hours ticked by, the object approaching Helios Station resolved itself on their sensors. It wasn't a ship, at least not in any conventional sense. The structure, if it could be called that, appeared to be a vast, shifting lattice of crystalline material that reflected light in impossible ways. It moved with uncanny grace for something its size, occasionally reconfiguring itself as if the very geometry of its existence was fluid. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Martinez, staring at the sensor imagery. "It's wrong," countered Reynolds. "Look at how it moves. That's not normal physics." The security chief's concern seemed justified when, 2 hours ahead of calculations, the visitor arrived without warning. The massive structure simply appeared in orbit around Helios Station as if it had always been there. The station's sensors screamed with contradictory data, gravity fluctuations, radiation spikes, and energy signatures that defied classification. They've arrived, Commander Wang announced through the station-wide communication system, his voice steady despite the circumstances. First contact protocol is now in effect. All personnel maintain positions and await further instructions. The first contact team assembled in the station's main airlock chamber, the designated meeting area selected for its easy sealing and emergency protocols. They wore standard EVA suits modified with additional sensors and recording equipment. Remember, Wang instructed his team, we represent all of humanity in this moment. Whatever happens, we face it with dignity and purpose. They didn't have to wait long. The airlock's external sensors detected movement, something was approaching the station. But the readings made no sense. The visitor seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, its form shifting between states of matter that shouldn't be possible. It's requesting entry, reported Caleb, studying his handheld scanner. At least, I think that's what these energy patterns indicate. Wang made the call, grant access, controlled decompression protocol. The outer airlock door slid open to the void of space, and what entered wasn't anything they had prepared for. The air in the chamber grew inexplicably cold. Instruments fluctuated wildly, and every human present felt an overwhelming sense of wrongness, as if reality itself objected to the visitor's presence. It appeared first as a point of light, then expanded into a crystalline structure that hovered at eye level. The crystal shifted constantly, its facets rearranging themselves in patterns too complex to follow. It pulsed with internal light that seemed to bypass the visual cortex entirely, creating impressions directly in the mind. Commander Wang stepped forward, fighting against his instinctive fear. On behalf of humanity, he began, his voice strong despite the tremor in his hands, I welcome you to Helios Station. We are honored to establish first contact with your species. The crystalline entity pulsed, and suddenly, impossibly, words formed in their minds, not heard, but somehow directly impressed upon their consciousness. WEHAV received YOUR signal. Your kind is unexpected, interesting. The voice, if it could be called that, felt ancient and vast, like the echo of a mountain speaking. It carried with it alien concepts that human minds struggled to process, leaving everyone present with pounding headaches and a sense of vertigo. We sent our message in peace, Nadia continued, pressing her hands against her temples. We seek knowledge and friendship with other intelligent beings. The crystal structure flared with what might have been amusement. Peace, friendship. These CONCPTS are limiting. We seek understanding through examination. Your kind will be examined thoroughly. Security Chief Reynolds' hand moved instinctively toward her weapon, but Wang stopped her with a sharp glance. We're happy to share our knowledge, he offered carefully, but we maintain sovereignty over ourselves and our station. The visitor's form expanded slightly, tendrils of crystalline material extending outward. Tiochi examination has begun. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the station. Dr. Martinez's tablet displayed urgent notifications from multiple systems. Commander, she said, her voice tight with fear, something's infiltrating our network. Our defenses are being bypassed faster than they can adapt, and there's something else, energy readings throughout the station. We're being scanned down to the molecular level. Before Wang could respond, the crystalline entity moved with blinding speed. Tendrils shot out, touching each human present. The sensation was indescribable, cold burning that seemed to penetrate to their very atoms. In that terrible moment of contact, Nadia felt something vast and ancient rifling through her mind like pages in a book, examining her thoughts and memories with clinical detachment. As suddenly as it began, the contact ended. The humans collapsed to their knees, gasping in pain and shock. The crystalline entity reformed, now slightly larger, its surface displaying rapidly changing images of human history, wars, achievements, disasters, triumphs, all flashing by too quickly to follow. While you are kinda as primitive beauty resilient, you fight against inevitability with determination. This makes you suitable. Suitable for what? Nadia managed to ask, struggling back to her feet. The visitor's response seemed to echo from everywhere at once. Without warning, the crystalline entity dissolved into countless shimmering particles that scattered in all directions, passing through walls and barriers as if they weren't there. The last coherent thought it projected left them all frozen in horror. WEWLL determine if humanity DSRVSTO survived THE test. Well, the test. Chaos erupted throughout Helios Station. The crystalline particles, now being called the entity by station personnel, had spread to every corner of the habitat. They passed through walls, machinery, and even human bodies with disturbing ease. "Lock down all critical systems," Commander Wang ordered, staggering to his feet. His head throbbed with the aftereffects of the entity's mental probe. "Get me status reports from all sections." The reports came in rapidly, each more alarming than the last. Life support systems fluctuated wildly. Gravity generators switched on and off at random intervals, sending crew members tumbling through corridors. Communication systems broadcast nonsensical messages in languages that had never existed. And everywhere, people reported seeing impossible things, shadows that moved against the light, surfaces that rippled like water when touched, and reflections that didn't match their sources. Dr. Nadia Volkov assembled an emergency research team in Lab 3, one of the few sections where equipment still functioned reliably. Dr. Martinez, Caleb Winters, and Dr. Petrovsky worked feverishly to understand what was happening to their station. "It's testing us," Dr. Petrovsky concluded after analyzing the patterns. "Studying our responses to stress, fear, and unpredictability. It's like a scientist observing lab rats in a maze." Security Chief Reynolds' team attempted to combat the entity using everything from conventional weapons to electromagnetic pulses. Nothing worked. The crystalline particles simply flowed around obstacles or phased through them entirely. 3 days into the crisis, a young research assistant named Amani Jackson approached Nadia's team. Her dark eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but there was fierce determination in her gaze. "I've been reviewing the original signal," she said without preamble, placing her tablet on the central table. "There were patterns we missed, embedded deep within the mathematical sequences." Dr. Tanaka leaned forward. "What kind of patterns?" "They weren't just prime numbers or universal constants," Imani explained, pulling up complex visualizations. "When mapped properly, they form what appear to be records." "Records of what?" Nadia asked, though a cold dread was already settling in her stomach. "Extinction events," Imani said quietly. "At least that's my interpretation. Each sequence contains markers that could be read as a chronicle dozens, perhaps hundreds of civilizations contacted, tested, and—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Eliminated," Security Chief Reynolds said flatly. "We're being evaluated for termination." The revelation sent waves of fear through the station. Some people panicked, barricading themselves in their quarters. Others turned to their faith, gathering in small groups to pray. A few even attempted to communicate with the entity, offering themselves as willing subjects. But Commander Wang and his core team refused to surrender. They worked tirelessly, searching for any weakness in the entity's seemingly perfect technology. If humanity was facing extinction, they would not go quietly. On the 5th day, Dr. Martinez made a breakthrough. She had been analyzing the crystalline particles under every scanning device still functioning. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a spectroscopic analysis. "When exposed to certain frequencies of radiation from our damaged communications array, the particles briefly lose cohesion." "It's not much," Caleb admitted, studying the data, "but it's the first vulnerability we've found. They seem to struggle with maintaining their structure when subjected to precisely 372.9 terahertz radiation." It wasn't much, but it was a start. The engineering team quickly repurposed communication equipment to emit focused bursts of the specific radiation. The effects were limited but promising. In areas bathed by the radiation, the crystalline particles moved more slowly, seemed less coordinated. Meanwhile, Imani continued studying the original signal, searching for any information that might help them understand the entity's ultimate purpose. Her discoveries painted an increasingly disturbing picture. "It's not just one entity," she explained, showing Commander Wang and Dr. Volkov complex data patterns extracted from the signal. "It's a collective, perhaps thousands or millions of individual consciousnesses merged into one. And based on the astronomical references in the signal, they've been traveling between stars for at least 100,000 years." "Doing what?" Wang asked, dreading the answer. "Evolving, improving." Imani's voice was barely above a whisper. "They find intelligent species, study them, extract whatever traits they find useful and incorporate them into their collective. The species that pass their test contribute to the collective's evolution. Those that fail are destroyed," Nadia finished. "But what's the test? What are they measuring?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Benjamin Ford, the station psychologist, approached them during an emergency meeting, his normally calm demeanor disrupted by excitement. "I've been monitoring personnel reactions throughout this crisis," he explained, displaying data collected from various parts of the station. "The entity's activity changes depending on our emotions and behavior. When people panic, become violent, or act selfishly hoarding supplies, abandoning their posts, the particles become more aggressive, more invasive." "And when they don't?" Nadia asked. "When people cooperate, when they help each other despite the danger, the particles become almost passive, just observing." Commander Wang ordered a station-wide analysis comparing the entity's behavior patterns with crew actions. The results confirmed Ford's observation. The entity responded positively to altruism, cooperation, and self-sacrifice. It became hostile when confronted with fear, greed, or violence. "It's testing our moral evolution," Dr. Tanaka concluded. "Not just our technology or biology, but our capacity for collective action and self-transcendence." Armed with this understanding, Commander Wang developed a daring plan. He gathered the entire station population in the central hub and explained what they had learned about the entity and its purpose. "This alien intelligence is judging whether humanity deserves to continue existing," he told them bluntly. "It's measuring our moral development, our capacity to put collective good above individual survival. I won't lie to you, we may not survive this encounter, but if we're to have any chance, we must show this entity that humanity is worth preserving." The plan was risky but simple. They would deliberately expose the station's communications array to controlled overload, generating massive bursts of the radiation that disrupted the entity's particles. This would create a temporary window of vulnerability, but also risk catastrophic damage to the station itself. "The radiation will harm us too," Security Chief Reynolds pointed out. "We could be condemning ourselves to radiation poisoning even if we survive the entity." "I know," Wang acknowledged. "That's why this must be voluntary. I'll need a small team to execute the plan. Everyone else should seek shelter in the radiation-shielded emergency bunkers." But something unexpected happened. Instead of rushing to safety, crew members stepped forward one by one, volunteering to help with the dangerous mission. "We're with you, Commander," said Dr. Volkov, and heads nodded all around the room. "All of us." The sight of his crew, scientists, engineers, security personnel, technicians standing together, choosing possible death over certain safety, brought tears to Wang's eyes. This, he realized, was humanity at its finest. Not perfect, not without fear, but capable of remarkable courage and solidarity in the face of the unknown. As they prepared to implement their plan, the crystalline particles throughout the station began to coalesce, gathering in the central hub where the humans had assembled. They formed a pulsing, shimmering cloud that hovered at the center of the room, its light casting strange shadows across human faces. "Why do you resist examination?" The thought voice echoed painfully in their minds. "Why owe you our extinction SNOT certain? If you prove worthy, why owe you may join us?" "And if we don't want to join you?" Commander Wang asked, standing tall despite the agony of the mental intrusion. "If we wish to remain as we are, human, individual, free." The entity pulsed with what might have been confusion. "Freedom is inefficient, individuality is wasteful. The collective perfects all it absorbs." "That's where you're wrong," Dr. Volkov said, stepping forward to stand beside Wang. "Our inefficiency is our strength. Our individuality drives our creativity, our compassion, our progress. We don't want perfection if it means losing what makes us human." The crystalline cloud expanded, tendrils reaching toward the humans like curious fingers. "You choose imperfection, explain." Dr. Ford joined them, his psychologist's training helping him frame their response. "Perfection is stagnation. Our flaws drive us to improve, to help each other, to become better than we were. We learn through struggle, through failure, through cooperation despite our differences." The entity seemed to consider this, its light pulsing in complex patterns. "Yet many ofyou kindacity dwith selfishness whenthrantned. Thy abandoned othrstio save themselves." "Yes," Commander Wang acknowledged. "We can be selfish, cruel, short-sighted, but that's not all we are." He gestured to the assembled crew. "Look at these people. When faced with possible death, they chose to stand together, to risk everything to protect not just themselves but all of humanity. That's who we truly are when tested, imperfect but capable of transcending our limitations through connection." The entity was silent for a long moment, its crystalline structure shifting through complex configurations. Finally, it expanded into a sphere that surrounded the gathered humans, enveloping them in cool light. WEHAV OBSRVD 174862 species across THIS galaxy. THUI descend into chaos WHENTHRATNED, SACRIFICNG others for individual survival. Images flooded their minds, glimpses of strange beings on distant worlds, faced with similar tests, dissolving into violence and betrayal. BUTSOME succeed. SOME show capacity FOR collective action despite fear. THSCGRI permitted to continue. And what about us? Dr. Volkov asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Have we passed your test? The entity pulsed once more, and suddenly every human present felt a strange sensation, as if something vast and ancient was withdrawing from their minds, leaving behind an echo of respect. Humanity is primitive but promising. YOUR capacity FOR cooperation under extreme stress is notable. YOUR willingness to sacrifice FOR abstract PRANCIPLES is rare. The crystalline particles began to flow away from the humans, gathering toward the center of the room. YOU may continue YOUR evolution. WEWILL observe FROMA distance. And 10,000 YARS, WEWLL return to evaluate YOUR progress. And if we don't want to be evaluated, Security Chief Reynolds asked boldly, if we reject your authority to judge us. The entity pulsed with what might have been amusement. Your consent is not required. The observers have maintained order in this galaxy for millions of years. Species THAT evolved toward destructive expansion must be CONTINED. With those ominous words, the crystalline structure collapsed in on itself, shrinking to a point of blinding light. Then, in a flash that temporarily overloaded the station's sensors, it was gone. In the days that followed, Helios Station slowly returned to normal. Systems came back online, the strange phenomena ceased, and the nightmares faded from the crew's dreams. Physical evidence of the entity's presence was minimal, a few inexplicable readings in the station's logs, trace radiation with unknown properties and crystalline residue that dissolved when touched. But the psychological impact was profound. Humanity was not alone in the universe. More importantly, they were being watched, evaluated, and would be judged again in the future. 1 week after the entity's departure, Commander Wang found Dr. Volkov once again standing at the observation window, staring out at the Carina Nebula. Credit for your thoughts, he asked, joining her. I'm thinking about what happens next, she replied quietly. Do we tell Earth everything? Do we warn them that we're being monitored? Wang sighed, his breath fogging the transparent aluminum briefly before dissipating. Would they even believe us? We have so little proof. That's not what concerns me, Nadia said. What concerns me is how humanity will respond. Will they see this as a challenge to rise to become better, more cooperative, more compassionate? Or will they see it as a threat and begin preparing for war against an enemy they can't possibly defeat? That's the test, isn't it? Wang realized. Not just how we responded here on this station, but how our entire species will respond to the knowledge that we're being judged. And that our time is limited, Nadia added. 10,000 years sounds like a long time, but for a species, for a civilization to truly evolve, it's nothing. They stood in silence for a long moment, watching the distant stars. Finally, Wang spoke again. We should tell them the full truth, because even if some react with fear, others will understand what's at stake. And maybe, just maybe, knowing we're being watched will help us be better than we might otherwise be. Nadia nodded slowly. A test can be a prison or an opportunity. It depends on how you approach it. As if in response, a faint shimmer passed across the starfield, barely perceptible, like a ripple in reality itself. A reminder that the observers were still there, still watching, still evaluating whether humanity deserved its place among the stars. The test had only just begun.